use Palestinian-Israeli issue to create disharmony within society. Raising overnight policy rate not the only solution to ringgit depreciation. Good evening and salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching Malaysia Tonight. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Members of the public have been reminded not to politicize the Palestinian-Israeli conflict or allow it to be used as a tool to create disharmony among the multiracial society in Malaysia. In fact, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said the people of various ethnicities in the country should view the conflict as a humanitarian issue affecting the Palestinians who are struggling to break free from Israeli occupation.
Saya juga ingin mengambil kesempatan ini, Tan Sri Yang Ketua, untuk menggesa seluruh rakyat Malaysia tanpa mengira kaum dan agama untuk melihat ini dari segi kaedah sejarah dan kemanusiaan. Dan janganlah jadikan isu ini sebagai isu yang membedakan sikap kita terhadap apa itu kemerdekaan. Kerana ada juga suara-suara yang menganggap kita pertama terlalu keras, keduanya bertentangan dengan sikap berkecuali Malaysia. Ya, Malaysia mendukung prinsip berkecuali, tapi tidak berkecuali dalam soal kezaliman. Tidak berkecuali bila ribuan anak-anak dibunuh dan dibom. Tidak berkecuali dalam soal keadilan dan kemanusiaan.
The Prime Minister said that the issue of Palestine is indeed very close to the Muslim community, but at the same time involves humanitarian issue that need to be exposed to the general public to increase their knowledge. On foreign pressure and threats, the Premier said that the Wisma Putra has received 3 demarche notes from the United States requesting Malaysia not to continue to be firm in its stance, especially in refusing to designate Hamas as a terrorist group.
Saya tegaskan bahawa Malaysia kekal dengan pendirian bebas kita, pertimbangan kemanusiaan kita dan menganggap pencerobohan itu haram dari segi undang-undang dan kaedah antarabangsa.
He also insisted that Malaysians do not need to feel worried and afraid of any form of external pressure, as it firm stance with also shared with 119 member countries of the United Nations UN during the emergency meeting of the UN Security Council on 27th October. The Malaysian Armed Forces MAF will be ready in the event of any decision or mandate to be deployed as a peacekeeping force to Palestine. Defence Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Hassan said this included the country's Malbat Peacekeeping Unit under the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, if required urgently, including for the purpose of evacuating Malaysians in affected areas.
Buat masa ini, Datuk Petua, tiada sebarang keputusan oleh PBB ataupun United Nations untuk menghantar tentera pengaman ataupun peacekeeper ke Palestin. Sungguh pun begitu, Kementerian Pertahanan melalui ATM sentiasa bersiap siaga, termasuklah pasukan pengaman Malbat yang sekarang bertugas di bawah UNIFIL di Lebanon. Kementerian Pertahanan mengikuti secara dekat perkembangan di Palestin dan sentiasa bersedia memberikan kerjasama penuh kepada Kementerian Luar Negeri.
The minister also said any decision to unilaterally send troops to Palestine required a careful assessment from various parties, including the neighbouring countries in the troubled region. In the meantime, Datuk Seri Muhammad said he would bring up issues related to the Palestine as a side topic at the ASEAN Defence Ministers meeting next week to listen to the voices of the countries in the region regarding the conflict. He said that until now, Malaysia had always been committed to providing support to achieve universal peace under the UN banner, and this had been proven through its involvement in 37 missions, either as an observer or peacekeeping force. As to whether the government intended to send peacekeepers to Palestine through the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, the minister said the matter was up to Wisma Putra's consideration since it involved other countries. The Women, Family and Community Development Ministry, or KPWKM, has obtained the cooperation of the Royal Malaysia Police PDRM to screen candidates applying to work as babysitters. Its Minister Datuk Seri Nancy Shukri said the agreement was reached during her meeting with Deputy Inspector General of Police Datuk Seri Ayuhan Maidin Piche last week. Datuk Seri Nancy said the move would be taken in efforts to reduce child abuse at nurseries and childcare centres. Speaking to media after opening the strategic partnership program on anti-sexual harassment advocacy with Express Rail Links in Yang Berhad today, she said KPWKM and PDRM will have further discussions to formalise the matter. According to her, the process of hiring babysitters needs to be tightened to ensure the welfare and safety of the children under their care. She said spot checks would be carried out at childcare centres as part of the monitoring by the ministry. Regarding the strategic partnership program on anti-sexual harassment advocacy, she said it was a continuation of the KPWKM Advocacy Anti-Sexual Harassment Roadshow. Datuk Seri Nancy added that the program is aimed at providing awareness and education regarding sexual harassment to eliminate the culture of normalising sexual harassment. Malaysia's target of ranking in the top 25 in the Corruption Perceptions Index, the CPI, within 10 years is realistic and achievable, Chief Secretary to the Government Tan Sri Muhammad Zuki Ali said. He said based on current efforts implemented by the government, he is confident that the country's position in the index will be improved.
Sebab itulah saya rasa yang paling mustahak ialah kita buktikan bahawa kerajaan bersungguh untuk memastikan bahawa persepsi rasuah, indeks rasuah dapat kita turunkan. Saya yakin dengan apa yang dilaksanakan oleh pihak kerajaan bahawa masa ini, insya-Allah tangga itu akan dapat kita kurangkan. Itu
Tan Sri Muhammad Zaki said this after officiating the 2023 National Integrity Month celebrations. At the same time, the Chief Secretary General to the government said the National Integrity Month is the manifestation of the government's commitment in cultivating integrity and governance not only in the public sector but also in the corporate sector and society as a whole. The theme of the National Integrity Month this year is Integrity Citra Malaysia Madani, which is in line with the concept of Malaysia Madani, which highlights the framework for restoring the nation's dignity through the development of ethical values and morality of society. Now, coming up in our business segment, Malaysia confident about realising 170 billion ringgit worth of investment commitment from China. There's no need to hike the overnight policy rate OPR for now, as the country's present situation does not necessitate it. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim pointed out raising the OPR is not the only solution for addressing the depreciation of the ringgit.
Ada pandangan-pandangan ahli ekonomi untuk memperkuat nilai ringgit, kita naikkan OPR. Tapi kita kena beri pandangan, nak naik OPR itu apa alasannya? Kerana inflasi kita turun. Kerana pengangguran kita turun. Kerana tidak dapat tarik pelaburan meningkat. Jadi sebab itu dan apakah kesannya mungkin kepada peniaga-peniaga kecil.
He reiterated the government's medium and long-term plan to strengthen the ringgit, including increasing trade in local currency or de-dollarization.
Apakah ini mudah? Tidak. Tetapi apakah ia tidak mungkin? Tidak juga. Sebab dengan negara China, perdagangan kita yang tinggi, hampir 1 trilion, 25%, maknanya puluhan bilion ringgit itu dalam ringgit dan RMB. Dengan Indonesia 18%, dengan Thailand sekitar begitu, 18-20. Jadi baru 3 negara. kita sudah bincang juga dengan negara Arab untuk memulakan yang saya katakan de-dollarization.
Bank Negara Malaysia BNM is expected to keep the overnight policy rate OPR unchanged at 3.0% in its upcoming sixth and final monetary policy statement of 2023 on Thursday, 2nd November, to avoid surprising the market or squeezing the economy. SAHIH co-founder and Group Chief Executive Officer Kashif Ansari said all indicators suggest that the country does not need higher OPR rate at the moment, while inflation is under control and economic growth has cooled. He said this is because the bank was one of the first in the world to start raising rates in the cycle, and Malaysia was able to beat inflation without a recession, which has been good for the housing market. However, Kashif said that some have called for the central bank to increase the OPR to help stem the ringgit's fall as the local currency has fallen low against the US dollar. He said interest rates are lower in Malaysia than in the United States, so many investors are moving their money to the US for higher returns on cash and bonds. By increasing the OPR, the bank would hope to help the ringgit regain some of its value, and BNM may yet do this in 2024. Kashif said the central bank's decision to leave the OPR unchanged this month will help sustain current economic growth and help more people buy their own homes, which is the key to economic security. Now, meanwhile, Bank Negara said global financial conditions have tightened on rising expectations for a higher for longer interest rate path forecast by the US Central Bank. The central bank said the expectation for higher US interest rates was supported by data indicating the resilience of the US economy. On the ringgit, BNM said the ringgit depreciated by 1.1% last month, compared with the regional average of 1.8% amid extended US dollar strength, while the FBM KLCI fell 1.9% in the same period on weakened investor sentiment. Banks maintain strong liquidity and funding positions to support intermediation, and banks continued to record healthy liquidity buffers with an aggregate liquidity coverage ratio at 151.5% in September. The banking system loan-to-fund ratio, meanwhile, remained broadly stable at 82.5% in September. On asset quality in the banking system, the central bank said it remained intact, with overall gross and net impaired loans ratios remaining broadly stable at 1.72% and 1.07% respectively in September. BNM also said the loan loss coverage ratio, including regulatory reserves, continued to be at a prudent level of 117.5% of impaired loans, and the net total provisions to total loans ratio remain on a steady moderating trend, aided by loan growth and provision right back following improvement in asset quality. Now, the Malaysian government is confident in realising the 170 billion ringgit investment pledge from China, which Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim announced during his visit to the country in April this year. Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Tunku Abdul Aziz said an investment commitment means agreeing to invest in Malaysia. Commenting further through a post in X, the minister said the next step is that the company will apply for investment approval from the Malaysian Investment Development Authority, MIDA. He said at this stage, the investor will make known more details of their investment, and this is also the time when they will apply for investment incentives. Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul also said that once the details of the investment and incentives have been agreed upon, then the investment will be approved. He said the government has also created an Investment and Trade Action Coordination Committee, JTPPP, to examine the latest status of investment projects. The minister added that as of June this year, the country has secured approved investments with 132.6 billion ringgit, more than 60% of this year's target. The Budget 2024 demonstrates the federal government's sincerity and commitment to continue paying attention to Sarawak. Political analyst and senior fellow of the National Council of Professors, Dr. Janiri Amir, said this was proven by the provision of an interim special grant worth 300 million ringgit to comply with the Malaysia Agreement 1963 MA 63. Commenting further on the matter, Dato Dr. January said the grant announced by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim was 19 times higher than the previous allocation of 16 million ringgit to Sarawak. Moreover, the 5.8 billion ringgit allocation for the development compared to 5.6 billion ringgit last year allows the state to further bridge the development gap between Sarawak and the peninsula. He also said the federal government's move to delegate the authority to implement development projects of value under 50 million ringgit can also help accelerate and facilitate the implementation of projects that are urgently needed for the people's benefit. The political analyst noted that the government continues to provide the best to the people in line with the Malaysia Madani aspirations, and the rakyat should be grateful for the government's ability to deal with the current challenging economic crisis. Malaysia aims to achieve a 90% cashless payment target by 2025, with the current penetration rate ranging from 60 to 70%. Payments Network Malaysia Sendirian Berhad PayNet Government Digitalisation Senior Director Firdaus Ghani stated that the strategy involves offering incentives, improving infrastructure and changing public mindsets. Elaborating further on the matter, Firdaus said PayNet have been collaborating with the Finance Ministry MOF for the National Cashless Program or Cashless Boleh since 2019, initially with 3 agencies, then expanding to 18 agencies in 2020 and continuing into 2021. Currently, they are still in the process of discussions and seeking approval from the MOF to proceed with the Cashless Boleh 4.0. The end goal is that achieving fully cashless at 95%, a number borrowed from full employment in economic context. Currently, overall public sector digital payments penetration rate crossed the 80% threshold at 80.3%, rising over 22% at both federal and state levels from just 58.8% since the campaign began in 2021. Selangor and Pulau Pinang state governments have crossed 80% digital payments penetration, while Selangor state government has achieved the highest penetration rate among all participating state governments. The federal government's announcement to lift subsidies and price controls on chicken effective tomorrow is considered the right move to ensure that any government subsidy program benefits the intended target group. Selangor Infrastructure and Agriculture Committee Chairman Izam Hashim said the floating of chicken prices would result in the actual benefits of the subsidy program being focused and felt by those who need it the most. He said the government needs to float the prices of all goods, including rice and eggs, to enable the implementation of targeted subsidies. After that, Izam noted that the subsidies should be given to the eligible people in the form of coupons because through that, only the deserving groups will then enjoy the subsidies. Yesterday, Agriculture and Food Security Minister Datuk Seri Mohamed Sabu said the government has agreed that subsidies and price controls on chicken will be discontinued from 1st November. He said the decision was in line with the government's approach of retargeting subsidies in phases. The nation's strong economic fundamentals, coupled with strategies and programs as outlined in the Budget 2024, will continue to support the momentum of the economy to grow with the estimated range of 4 to 5% in 2024. Hence, the Economy Madani framework, which aimed at building a better Malaysia together, underscores the collective commitment and dedication from all stakeholders to ensure the successful realization of the economic development goals and national aspirations. In this context, the government will facilitate industry transformation and productivity growth through the formulation of evidence-based policies and the provision of a conducive business environment. The Budget 2024 will prioritize initiatives that nurture future generation and improve standards of living. The government also will focus on efficiency in implementation of initiatives and programs through empowering good governance and fostering an agile public service delivery. Collectively adopting a whole-of-nation approach will elevate the overall competitiveness and safeguard the nation's wealth, ultimately enhancing the well-being of the rakyat towards sustainable, prosperous and high-income nation. Now, the government is developing a national standard for battery swapping to help boost the development of the electric vehicle EV industry. Deputy Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry Liu Chintong said it encompasses aspects such as safety, functionality and battery swapping technology to ensure that the technology developed and used is safe, standardized, of high quality and environmentally friendly. The development of this standard involved various government agencies such as the Road Transport Department, the Malaysian Automotive, Robotics and IoT Institute, as well as industry players, especially electric motorcycle manufacturers and higher education institutions.
Pembangunan standard ini mengambil kira standard sedia ada yang diguna pakai di peringkat antarabangsa seperti International Organization for Standardization (ISO), International Electrotechnical Commission (IEC), dan United Nations Regulation (UNR). Standard battery swapping ini dijangka akan siap dan diwatakan pada tahun 2024.
According to Liu, Nano Malaysia Berhad has held discussions with the Motorcycle and Scooter Assemblers and Distributors Association of Malaysia and agreed to form a consortium to realise the goal of standardising the battery storage system technology. South Korea's Samsung Electronics operating profits for the July to September period were down 77.57% from the year before, even as the new smartphone releases boosted revenue. The company, which is one of the world's largest makers of electronic chips, announced third quarter operating profits of 2.4 trillion won or $1.7 billion based on strong sales of flagship models in mobile and strong demand for displays. The results were largely in line with Samsung's earlier forecasts of a 77.9% fall in profit. Although down sharply from 2022, the company's third quarter profit was well above the first quarter's 640 billion won and the second quarter's 670 billion won. The company said a profit dropped 37.7% year-on-year to 5.8 trillion won, though it represents a rebound from the second quarter's 1.7 trillion won. Samsung said that earnings in system semiconductors were impacted by a delay in demand recovery for major applications. Meanwhile, revenue from its networks business declined in major overseas market as mobile operators scaled back investments. Israel forces battle Hamas in Gaza as Netanyahu rejects ceasefire. Then more coming up in our foreign segment. A suspected gunman has taken an unknown number of people hostage inside a post office in Warabi City, Japan, following a suspected shooting in a nearby hospital. The Yomiuri Daily reported that around 10 post office staff members may be inside the building. The Yomiuri also reported there is a speculation that they may be carrying kerosene with him without citing sources. Police, meanwhile, have urged 300 residents in the nearby area to evacuate, while a number of police cars were surrounding the post office. The incident came as police investigated a shooting incident in the nearby town of Toda, on the outskirts of Tokyo earlier in the day. 2 people were slightly wounded in the incident, and it is unclear if the 2 incidents were related. Violent crime is vanishingly rare in Japan because of strict regulations on gun ownership. Japan has one of the lowest murder rates in the world. Israel forces battled Hamas inside Gaza overnight and struck 300 targets after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu categorically ruled out a ceasefire as a surrender to Hamas. In the 4th night of major ground operations inside the north of the Palestinian territory, it reported several engagements in which its forces came under an anti-tank missile and machine gun fire. Elaborating further on the matter, the statement said airstrikes hit about 300 targets, including including missile and rocket launch posts and military compounds inside underground tunnels belonging to the Hamas. The fighter came after Israeli Premier Netanyahu slapped aside a call from 120 countries for a sustained humanitarian truce. Witnesses say dozens of Israeli tanks operating on the southern outskirts of Gaza City. Israel's military also released images of mechanized units grinding through coastal sands in northern Gaza. They claimed they had rescued one missing woman soldier from Hamas captivity. Meantime, surgeries were taking place in the corridors of North Gaza's Indonesian hospital, where around 250 patients are currently hospitalized. Doctors said the hospital's 4 surgical suites were full, and a team of surgeons improvised surgical spaces in corridors for many who require life-saving intervention.
كما ترون الآن يتم إجراء العمليات الجراحية في كوريدور غرف العمليات، لأن جميع غرف العمليات ممتلئة. الساعة 7 صباحا استقبلنا موجة عدد عالي من عدد كبير من الجرحى مما يحتاجون إلى تدخل جراحي فورا، وتم تجهيز غرفتين عمليات خارج غرف العمليات بالإضافة إلى ال4 غرف عمليات المسؤولة، وتم التعامل مع هذه الحالات من الطاقم الذي كان منوره ومنهك ومتعب، لكن الحالات التي تستدعي لتدخل جراحي عاجز تم التعامل معها وإنشاء غرفتين عمليات خارج غرف العمليات العادية.
The Indonesian hospital in the enclave's north is the only operating in the area and lies directly on the border with the front line. Dr. Muain Al-Masri had said damage was caused to some of the hospital's units on Monday, which impacted its power cables, adding that the fuel used to power generators was running out. According to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, Israeli airstrikes have pulverized large swathes of Gaza, killing more than 8,000 people, including more than 3,000 children, and cutting off supplies of food, medicine, and fuel. Next up in sports, Petronas acquires naming rights for Sepang Circuit. The Sepang International Circuit SIC will now be known as Petronas Sepang International Circuit after the inking of a 3-year naming rights partnership with the national oil and gas giant. The announcement came just in time before the 2023 Petronas Grand Prix of Malaysia 2023 or MotoGP Malaysia from 10 to 12 November at this circuit. SIC Chief Executive Officer Zahan Shafriman Hanif believes the partnership will bring more impact to the racing landscape and more brands will take advantage of the added values to their businesses and customers. Elaborating further through a statement released, he said the partnership represents the shared vision of commitment to excellence, innovation and delivering exceptional experiences to local and international fans as well as visitors to further elevate the stature of Malaysia as a destination for sports and entertainment. Meanwhile, Petronas Senior General Manager of Group Strategic Relations and Communications, Datin Anita Azrina Abdul Aziz, said she is honoured to embark into this new partnership, an investment that represents the pinnacle of the long-standing relationship and commitment to support the growth of sports and entertainment industry in Malaysia. Alright, so that concludes this evening's Malaysia Tonight. A reminder of our top story: don't use Palestinian-Israeli issue to create disharmony within society. Don't forget to tune in to World Today coming up tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. on TV2. Till then, I'm Shuhaida Arifin. From river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching.